Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. Today, we're going to be doing something a little special. One of the videos I'm most proud of putting together is Hero Explained, a gigantic multi-part collaboration that covered every single hero card at the time of release. It's since been outdated by Destiny Hero release, after Neos release, after, well, Supreme Darkness with Evil Heroes. But not all hero variants are created equal. It's hard to justify making a whole new video every time an elemental hero card drops because it has more cards than most entire lore settings have, but Evil Hero doesn't even clock in at 30 cards, even now. And as the face of a new core set getting a new lease on playability, oh, what the heck, rent's due. Practice your evil laugh and make sure your intimidating costume is on point because it's time for Evil Hero Explained. And speaking of rent being due, today's got a very special sponsor, Raycon, the everyday earbuds that I've been using every day since I got them. Look, if I'm out running errands or doing chores around the apartment, I've gotta have my music. And thankfully, Raycon is a brand that I don't have to worry falling out of my ears every few minutes, which I haven't been able to say about some other brands that I've tried in the past. In fact, hey, Editor Nova, can we get some B-roll of me shaking my head around trying to get these things out? See? Completely sealed in there, making sure that I keep getting the sound that I need to stay immersed while delivering great audio quality at an affordable price. Now, my favorite part about doing sponsorships like this is that I get you some amazing deals, and this time around is no exception. The holidays are right around the corner, and that means Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals, like this one. Click my link down below and you can find a number of Raycon's top products at up to 30% off. You can even find the everyday earbuds in a variety of colors, including a number of different case protectors you can use to accessorize them and keep them safe. Look, I had to get the Galaxy one, okay? It's called GoldenNovaYugioh. I ain't doing anything without the space theme. So don't delay. Click my link down below to get some of the best earbuds you'll ever have and help the channel out at the same time. It's basically a win-win. Okay, enough of that goody two-shoes nonsense. Now it's time for some villainy! So what's the deal with evil heroes? Well, they're a series of primarily fiend-type monsters that are a dark reflection of Jaden Yuki's elemental heroes, wielded by his shadowy alter ego, the Supreme King. Many of the main deck monsters are, appropriately, evil mirror universe versions of our old favorites like Blade Edge, Necroshade, and even Prisma. You know, a glimpse into his dark reality. But the game plan isn't that far removed from elemental heroes. You've got monsters you want to fuse to make big bosses that do cool things. Well, cool being subjective, there's a reason this theme never really got off the ground. Let's get things started with Evil Hero Infernal Prodigy, a level 2 dark monster with 300 attack and 600 defense. If you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand in attack position, and once per turn during the end phase, if you tributed this card this turn for the tribute summon of a hero monster, you draw a card, basically replacing itself for an overall free tribute summon. Now, the theme isn't quite geared towards deploying tribute summoned monsters, but base E-heroes do have a couple in case you wanted to pivot over, and Evil Hero is no different. In fact, let's take a peek at probably their best one at the time, Evil Hero Malicious Edge, a level 7 earth monster with 2600 attack and 1800 defense. And if your opponent controls a monster, you can tribute summon this card face up with only a single tribute. Also, it deals piercing battle damage. This is a remix of elemental hero Blade Edge and is almost entirely a strict upgrade. And if you made it using the Hero Kid knockoff known as Infernal Prodigy, it's almost like you never even needed a tribute at all. There's another hero that Prodigy can actually help summon coming up later, but honestly, just stick to other methods of special summoning these monsters. Prodigy wasn't very good back then, and it certainly hasn't aged well. But I do gotta hand it to him. Prodigy and Malicious Edge are probably the most on point when it comes to costuming, insofar as the BDSM gear is involved. Those two are heading for one hell of a munch. Evil Hero Adusted Gold is a level 4 light monster with 2100 attack and 800 defense that you can discard to add a Dark Fusion, or any card that specifically lists Dark Fusion in its text, from your deck to your hand, except a copy of this card. This card also can't attack unless you control a fusion monster. This hero is a riff on elemental hero Captain Gold, which was itself part of a series of monsters that you could discard to look for a particular field spell. This one looking for Skyscraper, and would punish you if you tried using them without their signature field spell, which is why Adusted here limits your attacking unless you've proven that you're on the gimmick, unlocking a pretty fantastic 2100 attack stat on a level 4 monster. This was part of Evil Hero's last wave of support and adds a lot of value to the theme. Dark Fusion is a card we'll be hearing a lot of, especially once we reach our fusions, so it's very important, especially an alternate Dark Fusion that you can use that's absurdly strong. And as the card pool expands, this card gets more and more useful. It's a must-have card for any version of Evil Heroes, and even sees play in hero piles for what it can enable. But the truly evil part is that Adusted Gold heralded the end for hero builds forever. I mean, look, Nibiru was already on its way, everyone get down! Evil Hero Doom Prison is a level 4 light rock monster, very funny, with 1700 attack and 1100 defense. And if you control a fusion monster that must be special summoned with Dark Fusion, you can special summon this card from your hand, which you can only do with copies of this card once per turn. You can send a hero monster from your deck to the grave, and this turn, if this face-up card is used as material for the fusion summon of a hero monster, it can substitute any one fusion material whose name is mentioned on it, but the other material must be correct. This is the Evil Hero take on elemental hero Prisma, and it's a very interesting one. See, Prisma has seen play in a few decks because of its ability to turn its name into anything that you can send from the deck to the graveyard if you have a fusion monster that specifically lists a specific monster as material. But Doom Prison is an honest-to-goodness fusion substitute, acting as any named material of a hero fusion monster by sending any hero from your deck to the graveyard, which differs from Prisma because it doesn't mimic that name, it just becomes any name that you need. So, for instance, if you have a card that requires elemental hero Neos, you don't actually have to run that card. Doom Prison can just send any hero from deck to grave, and there we go. And because it bins heroes directly from the deck, you can even trigger cards like Shadow Mist to get you a search while setting this up. And that's all before we grapple with the fact that Doom Prison is randomly a rock monster, which actually is not random, because one of our Evil Hero fusions requires a rock monster, which we didn't have in theme before. Previously, you had to run something off-engine, and for what it was used for, the rock you included was almost universally going to be very silly. Of our new batch of cards, I think we're going to see Doom Prison have the biggest impact not just in Evil Heroes, but hero pile as a whole, helping to access fusions you may never have played otherwise. Like, nothing's going to make the old 2 specific material fusion elemental heroes good, but Doom Prison and Miracle Fusion effectively makes any one of them. And I just think that's neat. It's strange that Doom Prison is locked up though, because it feels like they're the most free out of all of them. Hey, can we get them out of the Clear World cosplay, please? That might help. Evil Hero Infernal Gainer is a level 4 Earth monster with 1600 attack and 0 defense, and during your main phase 1, you can banish this card from the field, then target a fiend monster that you control. That card can make a second attack during each battle phase while you control it face up, and once per turn, during your second standby phase, after this card was banished to activate this effect, special summon this card in attack position. This is the first Evil Hero we've talked about so far that doesn't draw its inspiration from a core E hero, and it's kind of bonkers. Any fiend becomes a double attacker and is semi-repeatable. I mean, ignoring the wider fiend pool, we've already got cards like Malicious Edge, a big monster that does piercing, on top of a lot of fusions that are going to be really, really big attack-wise. So Gainer turns them into a Marvel-branded blender. But it sadly lacks good ways to get it onto the field without being intrusive. Turns out the normal summon is still pretty important, and ways to special summon it might be better served with other cards. Not to mention the wretched cooldown time on this thing. Hopefully we'll find some cards that help to get this into rotation easier to take advantage of such a cool effect. And like, why are you skipping out on Lord Zed like this? Get him on the team! Oh man, God, that's such an easy observation. Did Past Nova make that joke? 1 second.
Unchained, you can use this monster to help your bosses make some serious gains.
Okay, I didn't. We're in the clear, thank God. Evil Hero Toxic Bubble is a level 4 water monster with 800 attack and 1200 defense, and you can special summon this card from your hand with no qualifiers, but if summoned this way, you can't special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except hero monsters, and you can only special summon copies of this card once per turn this way. If this card is special summoned and you control a fusion monster that must be special summoned with a Dark Fusion, you can draw 2 cards. Now, this may seem like an evil Bubble Man, but you'd actually be wrong about that. It's actually Neo Bubble Man, coming back for revenge after being soft relegated to the Forbidden List with the Metamorphosis ban. But that being said, the effect is very much regular Bubble Man. It gives us an interesting little draw engine if you've made an Evil Hero fusion, with a limitation that's probably already been put in place by other cards, so it's not that bad. But because the draw triggers on Special Summon, not just its own Special Summon effect, there are ways to get the Pot of Greed without locking you out, meaning it'd be free to use for Xyz summoning for monsters like Abyss Dweller or Bahamut Shark. I'm looking forward to seeing if this card will see play in the hero pile, but as part of the evil lineup, it's nice to have a way to dig for more cards. Still, I feel like we're really missing out here. Like, they couldn't have sprung for a bit of a bigger budget to grab the Dirty Bubble? Magic is already getting the SpongeBob crossover, they're leaving us in the dust, Konami! Evil Hero Sinister Necrom is a level 5 dark monster with 1600 attack and 1800 defense, and you can banish this card from your grave to special summon an Evil Hero monster from your hand or deck, except a copy of this card. This is an evil take of Elemental Hero Necroshade, which, you know, already seemed pretty evil to begin with, but go off. The original version helped to get our level 5 and higher heroes from our hand onto the field by bypassing their tribute cost. And Necrom here just pulls our evil heroes right onto the field, making this an incredible piece of fusion material, if only for the fact that it sets up that summon effect. Heck, by using this as material for an evil hero, you can banish it to summon out Toxic Bubble, and there you go, you've got 2 draws right there. How cool is that? It's also a way to get Doom Prison onto the board, gets Infernal Gainer into rotation, though, like we said previously, the other summon options are better than Gainer, as well as helping to summon the next monster we're going to be talking about. There's not much else to say here except I've already burned the Lord Zed lookalike joke, and it's way more appropriate here. Can someone get Time Force in here? We've got to retcon this episode. Evil Hero Infernal Rider is a level 6 wind monster with 2100 attack and 800 defense, and if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add a Dark Fusion from your deck or grave to your hand. You can banish this card and 4 other monsters from your grave to set a Super Polymerization from your deck. Also, until the end of the opponent's turn, you can't special summon monsters except for heroes. Also, you can fusion summon fusion monsters that must be special summoned with Dark Fusion with effects other than Dark Fusion. So this card is a bundle of deep cut references, so let's go through those really quick. Infernal Rider is made to look like an apparition that haunted Axel Brody during the Dimension World arc. The effect that gets you Super Polymerization recalls how Braun, the Mad King of Darkworld, tried to sacrifice 5 people to make Super Polymerization, and the continuous effect to let you summon out the evil heroes without Dark Fusion harkens back to how the Supreme King would use Super Polymerization to make evil heroes, even though that's not valid as the card is printed. Now, is the card even good? Well, that's up for debate. The card it searches is just Dark Fusion, not any of the associated cards, unlike a Dusted Gold, which is sadly a trend we'll see with a lot of newer support. Having a way to get Super Polymerization is pretty neat, but because you have to set it, you won't be able to activate it until the following turn, and Super Poly is at its strongest when you spring it on your opponent when they least expect it. By using this method, not only are you telegraphing it to your opponent, meaning they can play around it, the hero restriction means that your pool of cards that could be used with Super Polymerization has dwindled significantly. Yeah, sure, the Omni fusions exist, but we're looking to steal their monsters for material and summon something good at the same time. This is a nifty card to have in the roster for sure, but it just feels too unwieldy to be really effective. There's a lot of hype, but honestly, I think it's taking us for a ride. Alright, that does it for the main deck monsters. Now it's time for the fusions. They're all Fiend type and can only be special summoned with Dark Fusion, and can't be special summoned by other ways. Now, you've heard me talk about that restriction a bit so far, but what's the deal with that card specifically? Well, it's a normal spell that fusion summons a Fiend fusion monster from your extra deck, using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material, and your opponent can't target it with card effects that turn. It's kind of an early foray into fusion spells giving you little extra bonuses, and it's kinda cool, but compared to modern stuff, it's not even in the same ballpark. Targeting protection for only a single turn isn't really stupendous. Now, it does work for any Fiend fusion monster, so you could play this as some fun tech pick in decks like Dark World or Frightfur, but really, those themes already have on-theme fusion spells that work really well with their theme, so it's kind of a moot point. Only usable if you're trying to avoid something like Effect Veiler or Infinite Impermanence. The darkest thing about this card is its future prospects. Evil Hero Infernal Sniper is a level 6 fire monster with 2000 attack and 2500 defense, requiring Elemental Hero Clayman and Burstinatrix as material. This card can be destroyed by spell cards, and during each standby phase, burn your opponent for 1000 damage, but this card must be in face-up defense position to activate and resolve this effect. This is the evil version of Rampart Blaster and is basically just better in every way. You do the 1000 damage without having to attack directly, and it can't be answered by spell card based destruction, which is, you know, better than no protection, but it does highlight one of the issues of early evil heroes. They still needed specific elemental heroes, so you do, to some extent, still have to play some amount of the E-hero pile, which can cause some conflict as the two don't exactly have many strong synergies. Like, if you wanted to make Rampart Blaster, you could use any fusion effect. Polymerization, Gate, Miracle Fusion. Infernal Sniper required you to have Dark Fusion, which itself couldn't be used to fusion summon your regular elemental heroes. As such, this card, and a few other fusions we'll be talking about, have been relegated to the annals of history, never to be used again, which is truly a shame because look at how rad their designs are! Infernal Sniper has a battle axe laser. How can you just toss this on a terrible card like that? It's incredible! Evil Hero Inferno Wing is a level 6 fire monster with 2100 attack and 1200 defense, requiring elemental heroes Avion and Burstinatrix as material. It deals piercing battle damage, and when this card destroys a monster by battle and sends it to the grave, burn your opponent for damage equal to either the attack or defense the destroyed monster has in the graveyard, whichever is higher, meaning this has the potential to do a ton of damage. For instance, if you run over a monster with 1000 defense while it's in defense position, but the monster had 3000 attack, you're doing 1100 points of piercing damage, then 3000 more from the burn, totaling 4100. But that's about the long and short of it. Like the monster it's based on, Flame Wingman, this isn't more than a way to generate damage. But also like its original, they made a signature attack version as well. Introducing Evil Hero Inferno Wing, Infernal Backlash. It has the same stats as base Inferno Wing, but its materials are Avion or Burstinatrix, plus any other hero monster. If special summoned, you can add a Dark Fusion or a card that mentions it from your deck or grave to your hand, except a fusion monster. And if your hero monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle, inflict 2100 damage to your opponent. This will likely be the fusion you use Doom Prison to get into most, because now that it can count as either Avion or Burstinatrix, it fuses with any other hero to access it, at which point you get an adjusted gold type search, putting any Dark Fusion related card into your hand. And while the effect damage being set to 2100 means you're not going to have the potential to spike like the original, any hero can trigger this, and 2100 is a pretty big chunk of damage besides. I'm confident this will be an early fusion to grab or recycle the materials you need to set up your end game, but just be sure you're really careful how you do it. Wouldn't want to overcommit, get punished, and then run into an infernal backlash. Evil Hero Lightning Golem is a level 8 light monster with 2400 attack and 1500 defense, requiring elemental hero Sparkman and Clayman as material. And once per turn, you can target a monster on the field and destroy it. This is a riff on elemental hero Thunder Giant, and yeah, it's just free removal every turn. It's arguably the best of the original pool of Evil Hero fusions, especially since the Dark Fusion protection would guarantee at least one activation. Nowadays, it's about as forgettable as the rest of them, but it's good to see that not all of them were a wash on release. And hey, it's not like it's all useless today. I mean, look, it's a light fiend. Can you say Fiendsmith combos? Evil Hero Dark Gaia is a level 8 Earth monster with question mark attack and 0 defense, requiring a Fiend and a Rock-type monster as material. The original attack of this card is equal to the combined original attack of the fusion material monsters used for its summon, and when this card declares an attack, you can change all defense position monsters your opponent controls to phase up attack position, at which point flip effects are not activated. So hey, bonus, you have an on-theme answer to Sub-Terrors. This is an Evil Hero original, and as we stated previously, it incentivized people to run some goofy cards. In the anime, the rock material came from Jim Crocodile Cook's Gaia Plate the Earth Giant via super polymerization. But real-world duelists were not limited by the designs of scriptwriters. In fact, I oft remember looking at the trivia page for this, talking about the highest attack fiend and rock monsters you could use to get the most out of this card. Valkyrian, the Magna Warrior for rock, and Ultimate Obedient Fiend for the Fiend. And while it might sound absurd to run two off-theme, otherwise useless monsters, Dark Gaia isn't doing anything itself if it doesn't have absurd stats. Now, with the introduction of Doom Prison, you can now make sure it gets to at least 1700 without having to dip into anything absurd, but once again, it's not much better than having another big body to punch with. It turns out a board-wide stop defense isn't exactly at the bleeding edge of card design. Though I've got to say, between the Earth attribute and the 0 defense and the attack forcing effect, I'm starting to think we found an honorary Goki monster. Like, you tell me Dark Gaia doesn't sound like a killer stage name. Evil Hero Dark Knight is a level 8 Earth monster with 1600 attack and 0 defense, requiring a Fiend monster and a Warrior monster as material. Monsters your opponent controls lose attack equal to the total original attack of the fusion materials used for this card's summon, and it can make a second attack during each battle phase. Also, if this face-up special summoned card in its owner's control leaves the field by an opponent's card, you can target a Fiend or a Warrior monster in your grave and special summon it in defense position. Now, given the general design of the monster and its attack debuff effect, this has the makings of a Dark Gaia retrain. But the second attack and double-bladed weapon also brings to mind Elemental Hero Neos Knight, which also needs a generic warrior and also gains an attack boost from the material. Honestly, the strangest thing about this is that they decided to make a reference card to a monster that wasn't even used by the Supreme King and has questionable canonicity. But what about its actual utility? Well, being a board-wide debuff is actually much more useful than a single monster getting one buff. So despite it only having 1600 attack, it's going to outstrip just about everything. And with an unrestricted double attack, this knight is ready to clean up. And if your opponent gets rid of this, you get to replace it with any Fiend or Warrior from your graveyard. Okay, not any Fiend or Warrior. Even though the effect doesn't come with a restriction, our evil heroes can only be special summoned via Dark Fusion, so don't think about getting any of those back. Now, the funny thing is that despite having made a rock monster to help enable Dark Gaia, we didn't get an evil hero warrior monster to facilitate Dark Knight. But considering you're likely to splash in any number of other E-heroes, you'll probably be fine. In fact, this has the potential to be a new hero staple, as the materials needed to make this are functionally the same as our next monster, and it's a pretty common occurrence in the hero pile. Turns out when you give the Dark Knight time to prepare, it can beat anything. Evil Hero Malicious Bane is a level 8 dark monster with 3000 attack and defense, requiring an evil hero and a level 5 or higher monster as material. It can be destroyed by battle or card effects, and during your main phase, you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls with attack less than or equal to this card's. Also, this card gains 200 attack for each monster destroyed this way. Also, you can't declare an attack for the rest of the turn, except with hero monsters. Oh no! This was the crown jewel of the last wave of evil hero support, providing a vicious board wipe on a durable body, and it's surprisingly easy to access. I can't quite tell you how yet, but here's a hint. It's nice to have our own version of Miracle Fusion. The board wipe is largely the big reason to play this, as a base 3000 point monster can clear out just about anything, and a little boost from some of our other monsters can help overcome some corner cases, leaving a big open path for you to OTK your opponent. And if they made Malicious Bane this good, imagine what they're gonna do with the rest of the dead three. Malicious Ball and Malicious Merkle are gonna go hard. Evil Hero Malicious Fiend is a level 8 fire monster with 3500 attack and 2100 defense, requiring Evil Hero Malicious Edge and a level 6 or higher Fiend monster as material. During your opponent's battle phase, all monsters your opponent controls are changed to face-up attack position, and each monster they control must attack this card if able. Very you-bell of it. It even comes with its own little Nightmare Pain effect built in, and with 3500 attack, it's already geared up to clear a wide variety of monsters. And the material is even easier to get a hold of now that Doom Prison is around. Now you just gotta find a big generic fiend to go along with it. Though, despite everything, it's still pretty lackluster. U-Bell works because it punishes your opponent no matter what they do, and has a ridiculous amount of redundancies and protections. Malicious Fiend is just a big guy. If there was a hassle-free way to get this guy out at quick effect speed, it would be something fun to spring on your opponent just as they're entering the battle phase. But as it is now, it's an artifact of a bygone era, right down to trying to ape Magician of Black Chaos's fit. Hey, nice try, buddy. How about you turn up the buckles and turn down the blades, and we'll give you another chance next time. Evil Hero Wild Cyclone is a level 8 Earth monster with 1900 attack and 2300 defense, requiring Elemental Hero Avion and Wildheart as material. If this card attacks, your opponent can't activate any spell or trap cards until the end of the damage step, and when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, destroy all face-down spell and trap cards your opponent controls. This is the evil version of Elemental Hero Wild Wingman, and that effect is actually kind of bonkers. As long as it can connect to your opponent, you've got a way to clear out any surprises your opponent has waiting for you, as long as they are specifically battle traps. If they have anything that's even a little chainable beforehand, Wild Cyclone is still vulnerable, which, despite having possibly one of the biggest upsides of our Evil Hero fusions, unfortunately makes it one of the worst ones. It says it's wild, but honestly it seems pretty tame. Evil Hero Neos Lord is a level 10 dark monster with 2500 attack and 2000 defense, requiring Elemental Hero Neos, or a fusion monster that mentions it, plus any effect monster on the field as material. It can't be destroyed by battle or card effects, and if this card is special summoned, or any number of monsters would be sent to your opponent's grave while this card is on the field, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls and take control of it permanently. Folks, behold the unleashed power of the Supreme King, wielding Neos as it was always meant to be. It's sturdy against all forms of destruction and can steal your opponent's monsters permanently, even getting you one immediately as a signing bonus. And because any effect monster on the board is viable material for that second part, it's a great way to leverage a Neos with super polymerization. The bad news is that it's not super strong with Neos fusion, because even though it only needs 2 material, one has to be on the field. Though, at least you can still use one of your effect monsters on the board with a Neos from deck. And all of that presumes that you've already accessed an effect that lets you use non-dark fusion effects to summon out your evil heroes. With the prospect of playing with your opponent's best monsters and a fairly easy to accomplish fusion material recipe, this is bound to be the front runner for the theme's game plan moving forward. Step aside, Zark. This is what a real Supreme King looks like. Alright, that covers all of our monsters. Now it's time for the spells and traps. Dark Calling is a normal spell card that fusion summons a fusion monster from your extra deck that must be special summoned with Dark Fusion by banishing the fusion materials listed on it from your hand and or grave, and this is treated as a fusion summon with Dark Fusion. This is the card that's the glue that holds the whole godforsaken theme together. By discarding a Dusted Gold, you can grab this card because it mentions Dark Fusion, and you've ended up with an evil hero in your graveyard, so you've got half the fusion material you need right there. Well, at least for the ones that matter. Previously, what you would do is, as part of the hero pile, search out a Dusted Gold with one of your many hero searches. Then, once you had your Vision Hero Ferris in the graveyard, you could use the Dark Calling you searched off the gold to banish gold as the evil hero requirement, and Ferris for the level 5 and higher requirement to make Malicious Bane. But now, instead of waiting for Ferris, you can banish any of your warriors from the grave instead to make Dark Knight, gifting Dark Calling with an incredible amount of flexibility. You effectively have your choice of a monster board wipe if there isn't a lot of interaction that's going to stop you, or a big debuff that can run over a lot of monsters without having to activate anything past the Dark Calling. But as you check out the rest of the options, you realize we don't have a lot of other options that work super well with it. For instance, if you use Doom Prison's effect to become a fusion substitute monster, you can't actually fuse it away with Dark Calling because the materials for it has to come from your hand or grave. The field has nothing to do with it. And because Neos Lord needs an effect monster on the field, Dark Calling can't be used to summon it, making this miracle fusion of the evil heroes no longer the catch-all that it once was. Which means that Dark Fusion is actually necessary to play now. Oh god, I think I've got to sit down. Dark Contact is a normal spell card that has you activating one of 2 effects, but you can only activate one of them per turn. The first effect fusion summons a fusion monster from your extra deck that must be special summoned with Dark Fusion by shuffling its materials from the field, grave, and or banishment into the deck, which is treated as a fusion summon with Dark Fusion. Or you can add a Supreme King's Castle or Dark Fusion from your deck to your hand. Okay, now this is a welcome sight. As a fusion effect that can utilize the field and graveyard, we've solved a number of outstanding issues with Dark Calling in regards to our newer fusions. And if we want to be really cheeky, we can get double value by banishing with Dark Calling first, then shuffling those materials back with Contact. But the second effect is also pretty slick. Changing Contact to Dark Fusion does give you some targeting protection while letting you keep the material in rotation for another Dark Contact, but Supreme King's Castle is a great field spell for helping us utilize other fusion effects to make our evil heroes, making it easier for the rest of the hero pile to utilize them. This is a pretty fantastic addition to the theme, and I'm so glad we were able to get this card's contact information. Evil Assault is a normal spell card that has you discarding a card to take a level 4 or lower evil hero monster from your deck and either adding it to your hand or special summoning it. Also, you can't special summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn after this card resolves, except for hero monsters. If this card is in your grave, except the turn it was sent there, you can banish it to add a Dark Fusion from your graveyard to your hand. This is just a nice little consistency piece, putting a Dusted Gold into your hand for the Dark Fusion-esque search, Doom Prison onto the field for combos, Toxic Bubble for some draws, and Infernal Gainer for some funny multi-attacks. Infernal Prodigy doesn't matter. And then you're getting a Dark Fusion back to your hand later. Though it only gets Dark Fusion, but hey, it's better than nothing. Though I wouldn't mind a bit of a charge. Can we get some Evil Assault and Battery going on here? Evil Mind is a normal spell card that you can activate if you control a fiend monster. Activate one of these effects based on the number of monsters in your opponent's grave. If they have 1 or more, you can draw a card. If they have 4 or more, you can add a hero monster or dark fusion from your deck to your hand. And with 10 or more, you can add a polymerization or fusion spell card from your deck to your hand. This has some really cool options for you to choose from, and with how many decks churn through monsters, it's not unreasonable to assume you'll have access to all of the effects. But it's certainly not helpful when going first, making this a side deck card at best, and it relies on your opponent, which I'm never happy to see in a card. Like, at worst, it's an upstart goblin with a hard once per turn clause, but that's if you only look at the options here. The worst case scenario is that your opponent denies you a fiend, and now you can't even activate this. Now, the risk might have been worth it if the effects were cumulative, getting you a whole stack of cards for your trouble. You can only take advantage of a single mode on activation. So, for something focusing on an evil mind, it certainly isn't smart card design. Supreme King's Castle is a field spell card that allows you to fusion summon fusion monsters that must be special summoned with Dark Fusion with effects other than Dark Fusion. Once per turn during damage calculation, if your fiend monster battles an opponent's monster, you can send an evil hero monster from your deck or extra deck to the grave to give your monster an attack boost equal to the level of the sent monster times 200 until the end of the turn, even if this card leaves the field. Look, I'm just saying, heroes aren't exactly flush with good field spells. I'd go so far as to say they don't have any, including this one, but at least it allows you to use regular and super polymerization to make evil heroes, so things could be a lot worse. The next question would be, is there anything good we can send with the attack boost effect? Because I think we want a bit more than a little bit of a boost. And thankfully, we do. Sinister Necrom not only gets you a cool 1000 attack, it's a free evil hero summon. Infernal Rider gets you 1200 and sets up the super polymerization search. Heck, it even applies a lingering version of the castle's fusion requirement change in case it gets taken out. Not to mention that you can just send big monsters to grave to use as material for Dark Calling or Contact. I mean, if you want a fusion monster that lists Neos as material to use for making Neos Lord, well, Neos Lord does that. And now that you can search it with Dark Contact, on top of being able to search it with cards like a Dust of Gold and Infernal Backlash, you only really need the one copy to use whenever it comes up. But look, don't tell the Supreme King I'm telling you this, but this castle looks so unfinished. Only the entrance has been carved, and a ton of those support stalactites aren't even in the magma. Hope you didn't pay too much for this. Dark Supremacy is a normal trap card that has you targeting face-up cards your opponent controls up to the number of Dark Fusions and spell cards that mention it in your graveyard to negate their effects until the end phase. And if this card is in your grave except the turn it was sent there, you can banish it, then target up to 5 hero monsters in your grave and or banishment and shuffle them into the deck. So you have a way to recover your spent cards, though my impression was that we wanted to actually accomplish things with those cards instead of just getting them into rotation, is what I said during my first draft of this script, but then I realized that a lot of hero combos require a bunch of one-ofs that make it so your big combos only work once. Dark Supremacy actually gives you an option to take heroes from every single walk of life and get them back into your deck, so yeah, that is actually pretty impactful. If nothing else, it does put Maliciouses back in your deck, and those combo with itself, so hey. But we also can't miss that first effect, giving you a lot of targeted negation on a single card, which is kinda new for heroes. But you'll need to be really deep on evil heroes specifically to make the most of it. At time of writing, there are currently 6 different spells that meet the requirements to give you more targets, and thankfully, it doesn't look for cards with different names. So if you have 2 Dark Callings in your grave, it gives you 2 targets. And even just 1 makes this an infinite impermanence that can hit spell and trap cards. So while it takes a lot of investment to reach a large target count, the Dark Calling you'd sometimes see in hero piles is enough to make this a valuable asset, as long as you can get this into rotation without much hassle. I also like the detail in the art where the monsters following Neos Lord aren't the other evil heroes, but the commanders of the Supreme King's army in the anime, the Duelists of Death. But they made a crucial mistake by doing this. Now, I can say that Neos, and all the elemental heroes by extension, are canon to the Endymion lore. Thanks, skilled dark and white magicians, you're really coming in clutch here. Okay, that's all of the evil hero cards. Now let me show you how we can deploy them. All you're gonna need is a Doom Prison, or an Evil Assault plus a discard, either way works. Get that Doom Prison onto the field, using its effect to send a Sinister Necrom from your deck to the grave. Now, it's a fusion substitute monster, which works great with the Infernal Rider that we're gonna summon off of Necrom's effect. That will fetch us a Dark Fusion, and what do you know? That's everything you need for a Neos Lord right there. Alternatively, we can fuse for evil hero Inferno Wing, Infernal Backlash, grabbing Dark Calling, which we can then fire off to summon out evil hero Malicious Bane. Which means you have two options here. You can either summon Bane to deal with a wide board of threats all at once, or summon Neos Lord if they only have a couple and you really want to take them. Okay, so that's all the info I have on evil heroes, but what do we do with them? Well, the combo showed it off pretty well. We want to close out the game using one of three methods. Take powerful monsters from our opponent using Neos Lord, wipe away an entire monster lineup with Malicious Bane, or debuff monsters that have effect destruction protection with Dark Knight so we can push for damage and close out the game. And because of how locked off a lot of our effects can be, we'll want to look to the hero roster to see if they can help us create a dream team, or should I say a nightmare rotation. So what can we play to help them out? As far as additional hero support goes, Mask Change is incredible because, as a theme made almost entirely of dark attribute monsters, we have outrageous access to Masked Hero Darklaw, shutting down every graveyard deck while giving you incidental hand rip capabilities. And with Wake Up Your Elemental Hero, it's never been easier to summon. Just use Miracle Fusion to burn up any used warriors and fusions, then find a way to destroy that monster. Special summoning Shadow Mist to get you that Mask Change. But how are we gonna do that? Well, with Destiny heroes, of course. Since our evil hero fusions are level 6 or higher, they make for great material for the first half of Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. And because Malicious is basically a staple in every hero list, it's not unheard of to have a spare Malicious lying around while you've got a Polymerization and a big hero active. Just have it pop the Wake Up next chance you get, and presto, you've got a quick effect removal and Dimension Shifter active as long as Darklaw is on the board. Just be careful, by shutting off your opponent's graveyard, you're actually creating a non-bow with Neos Lord, as no monsters are ever going to be sent to their graveyard to trigger the steal. So be sure you're focusing on the other evil hero bosses when you do this. Hey, did you know that there's a secret evil hero that I haven't talked about yet? That's right, we're going to take a bit of a dive into the Link monster territory with extra hero Infernal Devicer. Sure, it doesn't say evil hero on it, but it's a fiend, it gives a boost to fiends that it points to, it uses hero monsters as material, it's basically an evil hero. This card is very important to us because while Doom Prison exists to mimic our specific material requirements, sometimes that's not enough. We really want actual, factual copies of those cards in rotation, and Devicer helps to get those vanillas into our hand. Whether we're revealing Infernal Backlash to get Avion and Burstinatrix into our hand, or just revealing Neos Lord to get Neos himself, this is a prime card to spend your spare heroes on. And hey, getting Malicious Bane up to 3800 attack is pretty funky. Neos Fusion is also another fun way to get Neos Lord onto the field. Granted, you will have to make sure that one of the materials comes from your field, which will generally be the effect monster, but once you do, that's a Neos Engrave that you could potentially use with Dark Contact to make another Neos Lord later. Fiend support would be nice, but that's not really available to us. That's because we lock everything outside of heroes using most of our effects, so we can't just splash in other Fiend themes like other ones might be able to do. Think your Yubel Fiendsmiths. That means we're basically relegated to generic Fiend spell and trap support, and I don't know about you, but teching in Archfiend's Ghastly Glitch and Fiend Griefing doesn't exactly sound like a recipe for success. As for a silly tech pick, Dark Fusion isn't the only fusion spell that seems archetypal on the surface but can be used on Fiends in general. Dark World Accession. Granted, we are going to need to have Supreme King's Castle or be under Infernal Rider's effect that lets us use non-Dark Fusion effects, but if we can manage this, our silly tech pick gives us access to Neos Lord at quick speed to make a steal out of nowhere. Granted, Favorite Contact can do something similar, but we all know you want to use that for Neos Wingman for the quick effect board wipe, so access gives you a bit of wiggle room in that regard. And that's everything I know about evil heroes. After going through everything, I'm sadly not sold that they have the chops to be a full deck on their own, and will likely be chopped up for parts to improve the hero pile, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. While it would have been neat to see the theme shine on its own merits, it would require a lot more infrastructure be created before they even have the card count needed to fill out their own deck, if they ever go in that direction at all. For now, it's a few more solid cards that can be used to help unlock a theme that's been hidden away by some pretty restrictive conditions for a long time. Now, if only we could get ourselves an evil version of Mudball Man, then our journey would truly be complete. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Are evil heroes the supreme way to play the deck, or is this redemption arc a little too flat? And which one's your favorite? Dark Knight is just way too cool. It hits all the design points for me. Let me know your favorite down below, and if you haven't already, please be sure to like the video if you liked it, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and share this video with somebody you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode was brought to you by Raycon. Click my link in the description to find a number of Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals, with a variety of their top products being up to 30% off, giving you the gift of incredible audio wherever you are for yourself, or the perfect gift for someone else this holiday. It was also brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commanders, Upstairs Media, and Natiel Lee Alexander, Nebula Navigators 3rd Dynasty, 50 Gigabytes, Ada Basilisk, Adam Zajdel, Ancient Wizard, Andrew Newman, Battle Axe, Kane Senpai, Chibi Gohan, Christopher Fuss, Clockswork, Comrade Cobblebottom, Eric, Frankie, Garland Chaos, Going It/Its for the Bit/Bits, Great Big Pillock, Hair Bear, Happy Majin, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Iron Zero, Iskander 711, Carp, Marion James E. Picata, Millennia Asta, Muse Clark, Neon Yaminair, Orozco 09096, Panther J, Pat Poos, Rank 10 Trains, Rebel King Lucifer, Red Eyes Jackalow, RJ the Jank Monarch, The Critic of Innocence, Thievery Coast and the Wizard Moose, Cosmic Crusaders Animasta, Baden Von Titty Sprinkles, Beelzebub Fish, Beluga Master, Blitzwolf, Caesar M, Chaz Ghost, Dr. Reaper RIP, Eva Padilla, Hike Boyagian, Herbal D, Ignis Heat the True Draco Slayer, Inblink, Kale the Dragon, Lobomaru 02, Manga Pages, Matt Simmons, McSpoofy, Mike, Nitromo, Not Al Gore, Nyx, Obsidian, Rainer Leong, Rhyme Kairos, Shizuki Nijimura, Sir Knight JCB, Sophie, apparently, Stephen Williamson, The Legendary Raven, The Phantom Knights of Shitted Pants, The Gene, Tiger X2476, Weasel King of Weaseltown, and Zaldreka, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. If you'd like to help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, get my videos early, be a part of these credits and other awesome perks, it would mean the world to me if you would check out the link to my Patreon in the description or consider joining as a YouTube member. And if you want to see a lot, and I mean a lot, of hero cards, check out the Hero Omnibus video right here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.